I've just got to say, heads up, prepare yourselves for this one. You are in for a treat.
Wow, okay, we're going to take this chair. Look at that.
Hey, Ben.
Like a bro, my friend. All right.
How's it going?
Let's break open
first
a beer or
question,
something.
can men get pregnant?
Men cannot get pregnant,
Okay, awesome. So,
definitionally.
definitionally, okay. Do men experience SA? Sexual assault?
Sure.
Got it. What about the existence of trans men?
What about the existence? Do you mean women who believe that they are men? What are we talking about here? Women experiencing gender dysphoria?
So my other question is, do you benefit from white supremacy in any way, shape, or form?
I'm going to need more specifics on what you mean by white
Well, here,
supremacy.
let me give it to you, Ben.
Sure, please.
So I'm a transgender man.
Okay.
I've experienced SA.
Okay.
And abortion rights affect me directly. So if we're talking about the American dream that you live,
So-
why don't I have access to that? Because there's no legislation, in the history of America, that legislates a man's body, so why does mine have to be legislated? I've got a vagina.
I'm not interested in what your genitalia are.
Clearly you are. I mean, it's all over everything you
no,
make, buddy. I'm sorry. I hate to say it to you, but
I think you can read on my
kind of an
face that I
obsession
radically
you
am
guys
not.
have.
I think you can read on my face that I radically am not. When we're talking about abortion,
No, I don't. I mean, you can present it here, but in most of the content that you have, you attack my community constantly. And you don't even realize guys like me exist who actually share a lot of similarities to you and everything, because I'm a married man of 20 years.
I've
got a wife.
I recognize that you exist. I disagree with your
Right,
claim
so
that you
if
are a
I
male.
was sexually assaulted, right, and I didn't have access to that abortion care, do you believe that I should have carried that child to term because
What does
I
this
was
have to-
sexually assaulted?
I mean,
No, I just want to make sure that that's what you believe. Because as a transgender man, I have seen your side of the entire political debate, never ever having the conversation of what an American freedom is. Because why am I not allowed to live my American freedom as a man? You know, I mean, you get your choice as a man to live and free and all that.
You're really moving around terminology very wildly here.
And so are you, because that's the tactics you play in your game. And you've done it the entire time. You've jumped from one subject to the next. You speak so fast, and I know how you work. So how does it feel to have it in your face?
Oh, well, I mean...
Because I'm sick and tired of the shit that you have put against my community, especially black trans women. Because you constantly disregard all of our needs and then use us politically as a pawn when we're 1% of the population. Why not focus on the economy itself? All of us are struggling, and you want to focus on trans people. You want to focus on a black woman when this is clearly a glass cliff situation. America's falling apart, and let's give it to a woman right when it's all falling apart, when we'd had, 50 men run it and it looks like shit? Look at where we're at. Truly, where do you think that we're heading? I mean, it's so funny to watch white supremacy just fall apart the way that it is, and you ride so hard. Because guess what? In other countries around the world, women are not having children. And why is it? Because of the patriarchy and all the violence that men perpetuate, and all of this idea that abortion is somehow gonna solve it all by forcing women to have abortion instead of focusing on the real problems that we're facing in our society. We're just gonna completely ignore that, and we're just gonna go, you know what? The line item is, let's make women have babies so that we can continue this capitalistic society that we have. Why are we doing that? What? I mean, why? Because you want to push white supremacy and because you want to make your check? It does great for you? Meanwhile, people like me have to live with the consequences of all of your rhetoric that you put on a daily basis. And including my entire community. And the intersectionalities of black women, men that experience SA, trans people, everyone that comes in. And I'm so sick of the idea that you can come in with this bravado, that you're this big guy that knows things because you can talk fast, you have statistics. But really, what does it really matter at the end of the day if you are harming the entire American? This guy's been accused of rape. Trump, in court documents, and you're backing the guy. You have children. How could you do that to your own? Don't you have a daughter? What is wrong with you, dude? I've never seen such a party just completely the American idea, what we believe in as a country, is not what you're perpetuating. It's diversity. It's giving you tired, hungry, and poor. The Google phone you have in your pocket is because of all of the diversity we've had.
Pause.
Pleasure to meet you.
Okay, there's a lot of tension in the room now. Let's stay cordial. Let's stay respectful, please. Please, please.
So I've never quite seen Ben Shapiro being any sort of debate, if you can even call it a debate, like this. This was on a whole nother level. I mean, he just knew after a while to just shut up. It's not worth his time. Jubilee wasn't going to mediate this in any sort of manner. They were just going to let this person go on and on and on. And quite frankly, be on the verge of being quite aggressive and hostile towards Ben, where it looked like at one point they would attack them, to be honest. They're very clearly upset by Ben just simply being in this room. I can't quite understand how they let this person in the room. Obviously, this room is filled with crazy people regardless. There's no avoiding that. They are crazy. Most of the people in that room are insane, the stuff they say. Obviously, some of them are polite enough, but the fact that they're all giggling at certain points, you can just see that they've just been infected by the woke media, and it's not going away anytime soon. But this person in particular, this woman, it's clearly not a man. Let's get that straight. Women can get pregnant, men cannot get pregnant. That is, the fact that that was the opening question is unbelievable to me. But that is what these people are. They honestly believe this stuff. And the whole sexual assault argument was very strange. I can't quite understand where that was going. Quite clearly went nowhere because it was just a big rant and an attempt at trying to intimidate Ben Shapiro, which obviously he just didn't care for. Obviously his security probably standing back there. If that person tried anything, I'm sure they'd get put in their place very quickly. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be in that room without security. So it would have made it for an interesting video if something did happen, because that would have ended very badly for them very quickly. But it's a good job it didn't. But let's get back into the other videos. I've got some more crazy ones for you, and we'll see what else they've got to offer.
What's going on, dude?
Meet you, man.
Hey, good to meet you. Okay, so I just want to clarify the claim because
sure.
Okay, so the claim that I'm making
Yes.
about Kamala Harris, let's first say like what I believe her position to be. Okay, so she has not stated any abortion law that she would not veto. Right, so the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act, for example, or late-term abortion bans, she would presumably veto that as President of the United States. That's the position that I'm taking in this particular prompt. Okay, so that is the position that I find morally indefensible. Okay, so again, I'm a very, very pro-life person, but I can see at least the sort of nuanced arguments that some people on the left try to make about abortion, even if I disagree with those arguments. The argument that she's making, which is effectively abortion until birth should be in no way regulated, I find that to be morally indefensible.
My understanding right now is that a majority of Democrats would not support abortion through birth. My understanding is the more popular position, I don't think any state lets you go through birth. Maybe I'm off on that. Maybe there's a couple.
California and New York, actually.
Okay, understood. But yeah, I think the key claim is basically, I think most Democrats would want abortion within the first few weeks prior to the development of my personal moral starting point of life is that the mind is the seat of consciousness, the brain is is where your self is. If you replace your heart, you have a robo heart, you're chilling. If you replace your brain, you're a different person, you're dead. And I think that when that brain first starts to develop, that's sort of where I see the beginning of life and where the fetus gets their first moral consideration. Would you agree that abortion before that point is tolerable?
No, I don't agree with that, but again, quick question, just as far as defining the positions.
Yeah.
So would you agree that late-term abortion is indefensible?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I that's not my position. I would not support that.
So you actually agree with me on the prompt. Okay, so now we get into the broader abortion conversation. That's fine. I mean,
no worries.
That's totally cool. So yes, no.
Do you feel that a majority of Democrats support through like the moment before birth?
A majority of Democrats have not supported any abortion legislation on the federal level in my entire lifetime, nor do I suppose that they will. So if there were to be a consensus 15-week abortion ban, for example, which is about the status in Europe, I would assume that virtually all Democrats would vote against that 15-week abortion ban. So while I may agree with your more moderate position, or at least use that as a starting point, that is certainly not where the Democratic Party historically has been, nor is it where the Democratic Party is right now.
All right, awesome, understood. And just to understand where you begin your moral consideration for a fetus.
Where I consider
Yeah.
At conception. Right, so I believe in life, that life begins at conception. You now have a human being with potential, not a potential human being. And then the question is exactly what the moral value of that human being is. Once you acknowledge that there is, in fact, a countervailing interest to, for example, a woman's quote-unquote right to choose, once you acknowledge there's an independent, well, we're going to solve the Middle East in 56 seconds. Go for it.
Definitely not. My question is, if this were in the context of the United States, if everything were the same conditions of what you see to be terrorism, what you see to be from the Israel side, but it happened in the United States and the innocent civilians that died were United States citizens, would you see the same thing to be justified?
In what? So let's say that the United States had launched an attack across the Mexican border, specifically targeting civilians, slaughtering 1,200 of them, taking 250 hostage, and then the Mexican government had retaliated by attempting to solely target military targets, and our military men and women were hiding behind civilians, that would be the comparable condition.
Yeah, so U.S. citizens would be killed in hospitals and other things.
I would
like
not
that
blame the
in
Mexican
United
government
States.
for. I would not blame the Mexican government for targeting the personnel who were responsible
No,
for the
that's not what
kidnappings
I'm
and murder.
asking, do you see it to be ethically justified for them to kill innocent Americans at the same degree that they killed innocent Palestinians?
Again, the question of killing civilians is a question about who's hiding behind the civilians. Israel's not going out of its way to kill civilians.
That's not an answer to the question.
Yes, it is, because you're mischaracterizing the actual situation on the ground.
How?
Because
I
of
said
what I
the
just
same
described.
conditions. I said the same conditions.
We didn't solve it.
To meet you. So let's say that I'm voted out by my friends here, and I stand up and immediately collapse onto the ground. Paramedics rush in, and through some magical means, they determine that the only person who can save my life is you. You can do that by giving me a transplant. Can you be forced to give me a transplant?
I cannot.
Why?
Because I do not have a parental relationship with you, and thus I do not owe you a duty of care in the same way that I would if, say, you were my son.
Can a
If my
parent be
son-
forced to give a kid a transplant?
Yes, a parent can be forced to give a kid an enormous number of resources, or should be.
Can you be forced to give me blood?
No.
Do you believe that the average person should be able to be forced by the government to do something with their body?
It depends what, because that
Why
that
can
is
you
the
not be
nature of
forced
law.
to give me? Why can you not be forced to give me an organ?
Because I do not owe you a duty of care sufficient to remove an organ
Because
from
you
me.
cannot be forced to use your body to sustain my own, and that is the crux of
Because
the
I do not
abortion
owe you a
argument.
duty to
Because
care.
you cannot be forced to use your body to sustain my own, and that is the crux of the abortion argument. And the problem is, and it's very morally
ignoring the
inconsistent.
parental
no,
relationship.
because there's a point here. There's a very morally inconsistent part to your argument right here. If you do not believe that you should be able to be, you should be forced to sustain my body using your own, then you should also not believe that a woman should be forced to sustain a child that they do not want to carry in utero. Is the same basic argument.
Well-
it doesn't matter how you get there. Let's say that you crash into me on the way out of here.
Well, no, it's
if you
actually-
hit
it's
into
not
me,
the- it's actually
yes,
not
it
the
is,
same
but it is. If you say
It
that,
isn't,
let's
though.
say that you run into me
Okay.
on the way out of here. If you crash into me, it doesn't matter that that is the reason why I am in that state. You cannot be forced to give me blood. You cannot be forced to give me an organ. You
Okay,
cannot
that's
be
not
forced to
actually
use your body
how
to sustain
abortion
my
works.
own.
An abortion includes a pre-existing physical connection between the two bodies. So a better example would be the so-called dead violinist example or dying violinist example that was put forward by a philosopher. I can't remember her name. The basic idea there is that you wake up in a room and I'm connected to you, right? And you have some sort of health condition, I'm connected to you, and I'm giving you a blood transfusion. And if I remove that, you'll die. Do I have a duty not to remove it? I think there's actually a fairly decent case that I actually do have a duty.
No, you do
to
not.
remove it.
You do not have
Well,
a duty to be
you can't-
forced to. No,
why are you
because
defining my
do-
moral position?
You do not have a duty
My
to
moral
sustain
position is
someone
not
else's
yours,
body
clearly.
using your own.
Good to meet you.
So your basis is saying that culturally people don't have the same advantages, right?
I'm saying that not every culture sort of initiates the same action within groups.
So in part, you're saying that you're part of each culture. You know what goes on in each culture to say these things.
No, I'm saying that I can analyze the activities of a particular group with reference to their actual behavior.
So if you go into my culture, we're told that we can achieve anything through hard work. We have to work 10 times harder. But you're not part of our culture, so you're explaining something that doesn't have to do with you. But in turn, you're saying that that culture, unfortunately, does not value the same thing that the next culture does.
So revealed preference tends to be a better way of doing social science than subjective perception. So revealed preference is how people act in the world. So for example, if you have one group of people who say, we really, really value our kids studying, and then their kids don't study at all, that would be a revealed preference.
Okay.
Everybody has
So
has
then
a
when you
reason to
have
say their kids
people
study.
who say, in corporate America, you have people who value nepotism versus actual studying hard. What is that called then?
Okay, so the idea that people generally value nepotism over studying hard, I'd like to see the evidence of that, given the fact the vast majority of wealth in this country is not created through nepotism or through inherited wealth.
But Donald Trump was given nepotism, was he not?
I mean, he's one example among a bajillion people who are very, very wealthy in this country. I'm very wealthy now. I certainly wasn't born very wealthy.
But then you can't speak on Donald Trump's experience, can
that
you
just
not?
happens to be the case. Okay, I mean, you can laugh at my particular history, but I grew up in an 1,100 square foot home in Burbank, California, with 4 siblings in one bedroom.
In Burbank, hold on.
Sorry, go ahead.
In Burbank, I'm sorry, but in Burbank versus growing up in South Central, being told that you have to excel 10 times harder than the next person, but then you're not part of the culture, to say that you can actually come to these disparities is kind of far-sighted.
The idea that you have to work 10 times harder coming from South Central based on, for example, test scores is obviously not true. We've had affirmative action programs in this country for solidly 40
But now
years.
affirmative action is gone. It's out the door.
Thank
Now
God, it was a bad
DEI
program.
is present. DEI is actually saying that we need to have diversity, equity, inclusion. So you're actually putting a footing in the door for different races, different genders, different women, different men, everything. So now you're saying that because this program is gone, this.
Where do I get one of those hats?
Oh, my boy made it for me.
Nice.
So yeah, first of all, we're standing on stolen indigenous Tongva land, right? This is.
Are you moving anytime
indigenous
soon?
land. No, but
Why?
the fact of the matter is I'm born and raised California. We're talking
Yeah, but
about
it's stolen land, so why don't you
diversity,
give it back?
equity, and vision. We should.
So why don't
We
you?
absolutely
You
should.
could do it today, right now.
Great.
So
We
do it.
should, but that's not my point here. The point is you're saying that diversity, equity, inclusion is destructive.
Yes.
Right. So when we look at this country that is built off the backs of slavery and white supremacy, taking the lead, building the roots and foundations of everything that you know and believe today, it's ironic to see a Black and Indian woman who's rising up to the occasion against society, pushing them down. And this isn't just the fact that they're Black and Indian and a woman, it's the fact that
Can you give me an
those
example of how society
demographics-
pushed Kamala Harris down, please?
The demographic of people is what I'm talking
Well,
about.
yeah, but you suggested that Kamala Harris is being pushed down by society.
I'm not suggesting that, no.
I mean, that's
So
Okay,
my
pause.
point is saying
I'm
that
sorry, you've been voted